You're listening to the Reinvest Podcast, where each Tuesday we show business owners and entrepreneurs how to diversify into real estate by equipping you with the tools and tactics to build generational wealth. Your hosts, Garrett Gatton and Seth Ciminillo. Hey guys, thanks for jumping on to another episode of the Reinvest Podcast, episode 153. Very excited here today.
The only podcast that shows you how to better your life through real estate investing. Yeah. It's the only one. Don't even look for another one. Yeah, this is it.
We have created the wheel. No, but we are excited to get into no fluff. That's one of the things that we really try to stay away from. We're not into the clickbait YouTube stuff. This is the battle-tested skills required to be successful in real estate, and for those who are looking to, it serves your life. You know, I was thinking about the retreat that you did with Amanda here at the end of the year, and some of the questions you were asking in that, and the facilitator, Alex. What did you walk away from that? You guys asked a really good question.
Yeah, we did a end of the year kind of goal setting retreat. Me and my wife did, and we've been doing that every year for 4 years. But this year we did kind of like a guided one too, along with that. And one of the questions was really interesting. It was, if you had $50 million in your bank account, what would your day look like? What would you do? What would you choose to do? What does your ideal day look like? Because you have the money. And so then it was kind of interesting to dive into that thought process and kind of peel back of like, what do you want in your life? And so for me, it was like, getting up and reading, drinking coffee with Amanda, reading a good book, learning something, reading the Bible. Then it was, hey, have enough time to go on a run, no restraints, right? And then it was, let's do something active with the kids. Let's build something. Let's go somewhere with them. And then it was like, then let's go meet with somebody. You know what I mean? So you start planning your day as if you had all the resources you need.
And no restrictions.
And no restrictions. Yeah. And then he was like, hey, that day sounds like you actually don't need very much money to live that life. And I was like, He's like, nothing that you said in that day costs money. And so he's like, of course it costs money to live, but it was kind of peeling back of like, what do you actually want? And like resources and money aren't necessarily going to make you happy, but they are a tool to get you maybe to have some time freedom to be able to do those things. And so
kind of dispels the notion that bigger is better just for the sake of bigger.
Exactly. Right? And so it was kind of interesting. It was a good exercise. So I encourage you guys to do that exercise. What is actually going to make you happy? What does your ideal day actually look like? And then how can you set goals around that and to get to that point? And so
that's good.
It was really good.
That's good. Well, I'm really excited today. Bo, I know you got something on that, but I would be remiss if we didn't give you a proper introduction first.
All right.
So a week ago, I had the opportunity to come on Commercially Speaking, which is a great commercial real estate investing podcast hosted by none other than Bo, our guest today. And on that, they boast that they give the best podcast introductions out of anybody in the industry.
Really?
And I had no idea what I was getting into. And him and his brother Timmy had prepared this, it was a dialogue. It was a very, I felt like I was coming out on like a Monday night Monster Mash.
They put Eye of the Tiger in the background.
Yeah. Well, this is not that intro, but I do want to give our listeners an opportunity today to get a little context. So Bo Barron's with us, the co-founder of HearthStone Capital and CEO of Barron Commercial Group. You're based in Kentucky, is that right?
That's correct. Owensboro, Kentucky.
And you've got a military background. You were a Marine?
I am, yeah.
Nice, awesome. Excited to talk about how that's kind of shaped things for you. Very, very excited. One of the reasons I was excited to bring you on, Bo, is because you've been in the game a long time. And that's not a knock on your age, by the way. With age comes wisdom.
It is what it is.
So. You started when you were 10 years old. We can't help that you got an early start.
That's right, child prodigy. So no, thank you for coming on today. I'm excited to get into some of those battle-tested skills and how you guys are leveraging that in HearthStone Capital. But you had a comment earlier on something that Seth said, so I want to revisit that.
Well, you're talking about this guided exercise you did with your wife. I had a similar conversation with my leadership coach just a couple of days ago. And we were talking about what's my day going to look like this time next year, because we'll probably get into it, but I'm going through a little bit of a transition in the career. And my day is going to look much different next year. And I was asking him tactical questions like, just letting him know I've got a certain amount of mental capacity that's just grinding on this idea of, what am I going to be doing exactly? Like, what's my day going to look like a year from now or 2 years from now? And didn't have anything to do with wealth or money or whatever. But I was asking him tactical questions. And he was like, Bo, he said this. This was his question. And what you said really reminded me of this. He said, what do you want a day to be filled with in a year from now? That was how he framed the question. I had to write it down. And I was like, that's a good question. Man, I want it to be filled with time with my wife, just being together. Our been married for 25 years. We don't have to be doing anything. We just really enjoy being together,
Yeah.
So often she's cross stitching, or I might be leather working, but we're sitting next to each other, or we're in the same room, or my daughter is a junior in high school. We're often just in the same room. We might be doing different things, but we're together. We like being together. And so, there's that. There's some things that I care about. There's the new company, HearthStone Capital, that we'll talk about later on. That's going to get some of my time. But his follow-up was the tactics of how you're going to spend your time needs to be in service of the what. So whatever you ask, like the answer to the question, what do you want your day to be filled with? The tactics of how you're going to do that need to be in service of the what. And I'd never really thought in those terms before. Yeah. And that's occupied my mind over the last couple. And what you were talking about, the exercise you did with your wife, really reminded me of that.
Yeah, that's good.
I remember, I think it was Stephen Covey. You climb the ladder, and if you don't kind of ask yourself, what ladder am I climbing? You climb it, and then you get to the top of the wrong building. And nobody early on kind of tells you the why or the what. You just kind of jump into the rat race of what you see other entrepreneurs or business professionals doing. And it was probably 5 years into that journey for me before I even asked that question of like, if I keep doing this and I play this out down the road another 10, 15 years, like, where am I going to end up? Not good or bad. I just hadn't asked the question. And
that's exactly how my career started. Exactly.
Really?
I mean, I got out of the Marine Corps November 1st, 2004. Started working with my dad November 2nd, 2004.
Who was in commercial real estate already?
He was. So I'm the third generation. Wow. Granddad started a home building company in the 50s. My dad transitioned. He grew up in that business, transitioned it into building larger homes and then commercial development. And then about the time I was paying attention to what my dad actually did, he had transitioned into commercial real estate brokerage. And the reason he went the brokerage route was him and my mom had become Christians when I was about 10 or 11. Big change in their life. I didn't know what had happened, but I definitely noticed the difference. And as they started reading the Bible, my dad just felt called to get out of debt. And so really hard to do commercial development debt free, Yeah. And so he's like, he actually did the math. I don't remember exactly what it is, what the numbers were, but I'm just going to pick some numbers that at least be ballpark. He said, if I sold 80% of what I owned and the 20% that I had was debt free, then I had much less to manage and the cash flow was the same.
Yeah. Yeah. That's counterintuitive. It's not the way our culture or economy works, by the way.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I grew up with a dad who was purposing to get out of debt, who was a commercial real estate brokerage or a broker, owned the brokerage company. It was basically that iteration of the company my granddad started. And I wasn't interested at all. And so I went to college because that's what kids in our family do, is we go to college. Wasn't really interested, had no clue what I wanted to do. Basically wasted 4 years of college. Found myself in the Marine Corps because I needed somebody to stick a very large boot up my rear end. And they had the largest boot. And so they straightened me out.
Lord knows it wasn't the Air Force, you know what I mean? No, I was kidding. Just kidding.
I didn't say it. Okay.
He's saying that. I don't know if he remembered or not, but my brother's in the Air Force right now.
Sorry.
But he's a Marine. He did his 4 years. He was a Marine.
Yeah, and then transferred.
Re-upped with the Air Force. Wished he would have stayed with the Marines, but
you needed a big boot, though. That's what you're saying.
I needed fixing, you know. And so got out, came back, started working with my dad because I realized in boot camp a couple things. One, I was in love with my wife. She wasn't my wife at the time, and so I had a panic attack.
It yet, right?
It hadn't hit me. I'm not really that smart sometimes, and that became very clear to me. Family became very clear to me while I was in boot camp.
How did boot camp clarify those things for you?
Well, I'll tell you exactly how. You show up, you stand on the famous yellow footprints. This is all come back to me because my son's in boot camp right now.
Oh, no kidding.
So
wow.
Just December 9th, he was standing on these yellow footprints, you know, and I've lost a lot of emotional control with him being in boot camp. So I can feel the emotion just talking about this, which frankly, I've kind of enjoyed. Like just being a little bit more emotional, like the national anthem plays before one of my daughter's basketball games. And like, I start crying. Yeah. And it's like pride oozing out, you know? And, anyway, it's been, strange for me, but he was standing on those yellow footprints. I was standing on those yellow footprints about 26 years ago, and same dang yellow footprints. And they light you up. You know, they are trying to wreck your world and your identity and just put you in an extreme amount of stress and then build you back into these warriors that they want you to be. Well, first week you're there, it is just crazy pants. And they tell you on Sunday you can go to church. And I grew up in church and I was a follower of Jesus. I wasn't that serious about my faith at the time. And I went to church that first Sunday. Everybody went. And I mean everybody, because they told you for an hour, there will be no drill instructors. And everybody's like, yeah, baby, I'm in for that.
Conversion rates are high.
Yeah, that's right. They gave us a compelling value proposition for that 1 hour of church. So I went, and all of a sudden, we're singing songs that we sang at church at home. And man, I was overwhelmed and literally cried for an hour. I think a lot of us were kind of going through that. I mean, I just had all this emotion pouring out of me, and you know, I just realized things like how important Jesus really is, and
discovered it for yourself and not in the backs of your parents.
Yeah, it was a lot to do with that, and then I come from a great family. My parents are world class, and I took it for granted, and I was just aware of that. Realized, you know, I was in love with the woman who is now my wife, and so I had to write a letter, and so just all that was just. It was one of those. You know, the Lord can use anything in our lives, and oftentimes He uses the hardest things to get our attention. And that's what I think He was doing there. And
when those things are stripped away, the void is so much more apparent. You know, like you said, you're taking it for granted. You go there, all of a sudden you're separated from your community, your family, you know, in a different environment. Kind of puts things in perspective too that way.
Yeah. I want to hit on something real quick, and you know, I would love if we could talk about this a little more in depth, because this is something that I am actively trying to reconcile in my mind. You made a comment that your dad made a decision to get out of debt, which is on paper diametrically opposed to real estate investing, because that's why a lot of investors are drawn to real estate. You can leverage that, you know, over other asset, you know, vehicles and investment vehicles. So very counterintuitive, incredibly interesting. If you don't mind, what did that process look like? Did he see that through to the end? Did he kind of did he reshape, you know, it started extreme, like I want to do this, and then he kind of settled into more of this middle ground of, well, I'm just going to have a 50% debt to equity ratio, or where did he land on that?
Yeah, my folks are all in people, you know, so if they believe in you, they're your greatest promoters. They're serious about what they're committed to. And so when they purposed to get out of debt, they got out of debt. Now, my dad could have sold everything and done it rapidly, or he could have just plowed all the cash flow into paying the stuff off. And so he took about a decade, I think,
Okay.
to actually pay everything off. And he did it.
Wow.
And so here's the thing about I compare this to and I know you guys are followers of Jesus and I am, and so if you're reading the Bible, it's very clear that it is telling us not to drink too much. Like, don't get drunk. That's bad. It's a sin. Don't do it. But what it never says is don't drink.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see bourbon back here. I'm from Kentucky. Bourbon's just kind of the culture here.
It's like water.
I like it. I think maybe they put a little bourbon in our bottles when we were babies. Who knows? They did not. Mom, if you ever hear this, I know that you never did that.
Can't prove it, but
but there are many people who make the decision that they're not going to drink at all.
Yeah.
And then there's guys like me who I'll have a drink a couple times a week, but I'm very careful not to approach the line of drunkenness. So I don't want to cross that line ever. So I'm careful. Debt is, to me, kind of the same thing. You can hear people say that God never used debt to bless his people, but he always provided the resources for his will. Okay, like I see that. You also see, in the parable of the talents where, Jesus says to the one that didn't do anything with what he gave him, like, you could have at least put it in the bank, man. And then I would have collected it with interest. So there's an element of debt and interest that is not necessarily anti. And so what you got it with debt is it's how risk averse do you want to be? How comfortable are you with risk? Because debt comes with risk and it's generally undervalued. And so, the people that are coming in off the street, so to speak, when it comes to commercial real estate investment, they got no background. And what they hear is the Bigger Pockets podcast where people are leveraging and refinancing and taking it to the next deal. I don't think there's anything sinful or unrighteous about that. What you're doing, though, is you're exposing yourself to a tremendous amount of risk, and you can put yourself in a situation where everything has to go right for it to work. And man, my dad took the opposite tact. He wanted to hug the mountain and be debt-free as opposed to even approaching the edge of the cliff.
So here's my question.
He lived on that edge.
What did that do for his kids, for you guys? And here's why I'm asking that question. It's been my observation. All right, I got in 6 years ago. You jump into the market, into the messagings that you hear around you. That was 2019. And so we were in the up part of a market cycle, and the messaging that I thought was normative was leverage, refinance, velocity of capital, get as far as you can, as fast as you can. And, that inflation's going to, pay down your debt, all this different stuff. And then now I'm like, okay, but where's the top and where's the bottom and where does that leave everybody else? As Americans, culturally, I think we don't even look into the next generation. We look kind of to the end of our nose. It's how far can I get in my lifetime? And you look at some of these other subcultures, Jews, Muslims, Amish, like German Baptists, some of these other subcultures, they have a very different philosophy surrounding money and debt. And part of it, this is my belief, is that they look into the third and fourth generation of what they're doing today. And so at some point, if you're a Jewish family and you have a policy, because it's coming from the Bible or your conviction from a faith perspective that we don't deal in debt, well, what happens in the fourth generation of that kind of, those activities and habits? Pretty massive impact, right? So, but it's counterintuitive. So that's why you're an interesting case study here because now you're the recipient of your dad's conviction.
Yeah. So we grew up in a family that was insulated from the perils of the market. If things cratered, like we were fine. House is paid off. Properties are cash flowing. There's not mortgages to pay on all this stuff. And like the market, the world could do what it would. And we grew up with a lot of security. And a lot of it was just sensed from the stress level of my parents, which was very, very low. But when I started working with my dad in '04, if you remember what happened in '08, well, my dad set the company down when everything just cratered. And he said, hey, look, here's what our cash flow situation looks like. Just wrote it on the whiteboard in the conference room. Here's where we stand right now from a cash perspective. He was very transparent about this stuff. And then he wrote a big 0 on the board. He's like, that's what I owe. You guys don't need to worry about your job situation. Whoa. We're going to be just fine. Whoa. And so I saw that and I was like, well, see, that is the benefit of no debt, is you might not get as big as fast. But man, if you have a long-term perspective, you're going to go further and be able to provide security, the kind of security to your family and to the people who are in relation to your business, whether they're employees or their families or whatever. He never had to have a conversation like, I'm gonna have to pay this mortgage, and because of that, I can't pay you this week. Wow. Never had to have that conversation, And so, man, all those people that were trying to get as big as fast, right now, when they're trying to refinance, like they're hating life. They're having to deal with high stress situation. And that's the risk that you expose yourself to when you add debt to the equation. And you don't have to do that. But what you have to do is be more patient and look into future generations and not this 3 to 5 year deal cycle that everybody seems to think about, And look, I've done syndications. We got a syndication that we're selling off. We just put it under contract earlier this week. It was the 5-year deal. Yeah. And I put debt on the deal. Like I have operated with debt where my dad wouldn't. I'm more risk averse than the people that are trying to get as big as fast as possible. So I try to never put myself in a situation where everything has to go right. But I'm still bringing on more risk than what my dad did. But now at age 40, I'll be 49 in 2 weeks. At age 49, I'm moving I might be debt free by the end of the year. And I'm looking forward to that. And our new company is not dealing in debt. Right. And so I haven't actually had to articulate these thoughts in terms of the transition I'm going through right now. But a lot of it mirrors the path my dad did. He operated with debt for a lot of years. And then he was like, nope, I'm not comfortable with the risk anymore. I think the Lord's best is that I operate debt free. And that was his own personal conviction.
Yeah. Right.
He didn't scold me for using debt. Yeah. He was just like, look, man, you're bringing on risk. You need to be very careful with this, be very, very careful. So
what I admire though about people who kind of operate on the basis of conviction, especially when it's anchored in conviction in the Lord, is there's usually a faith component that goes along with that. I'm giving up opportunity cost on paper, according to kind of the world's perspective, in order to adopt this policy and be very intentional and focused to get out of debt. Can God bless me in spite of it? That kind of thing. And there's faith in other areas too. So, that's the beautiful part about having personal conviction. But thanks for expounding upon that. I know we didn't really intend to dive deep into that, but that's a personal question that I'm kind of mulling around in my mind. And so it's just a really fitting time to hear this case study for your family. So
Garrett's been consuming a lot of Dave Ramsey recently. And so
Larry Burkett actually is
getting
kind
in
of
his head.
The Godfather.
The Godfather. Yeah.
Godfather.
It really is. It is. But I think we all look for balance, and anytime you just kind of get in an echo chamber too much, that's when I think you set yourself up for failure.
Well, what's been good, and this is the last thing I'll say on it, then we can move on. It's been good to at least ask the question, what would it be like? What would this deal be like? What would life be like if we didn't have debt? And then you can kind of workshop it. And actually, we've been even underwriting deals. What would it look like if we just brought in 100% cash? Yeah. We didn't take on, debt. And it's a good exercise to at least show, is this possible to live debt free and to buy deals debt free? And do we just listen to all the naysayers and all the hype on the internet and all the leverage until you drop kind of thing? And so it has been good. It's been a healthy exercise. And
the answer is yes, by the way.
Yes. Good.
Like it's possible. It's just slower.
Yeah.
Man, we'll have to have a conversation about this, afterwards, because I'm really fascinated about it. I do believe that there are investors out there that would also respect participating in an investment that was not exposed so heavily to debt, especially with the uncertainty that we're experiencing in the market right now, which I believe is only going to continue. It's still going to be cycles, but we're not like ever going to that's never going to be in the rearview mirror. So anyway, all right. Well, hey, Bo, we could do a couple hours on this stuff, but one of the things I wanted to do today, much like what we've been talking about, is as you stepped into brokerage, okay, you started working with your dad and you started getting reps in the brokerage side of things and jumped into commercial real estate. What were some of the lessons that now that you're in HearthStone Capital and you're getting this off the ground, what are those lessons that you are leaning on the most over your 20 plus years of commercial brokering?
Well, you made a comment before about how, the first couple of years of your career, you're just sort of doing stuff, And when I started with my dad, when I got out of the Marine Corps, my dad is naturally brilliant with his emotional IQ, connecting with people. He is a savant when it comes to that. What he's not great at is teaching. And he doesn't necessarily understand how naturally gifted he is in some areas and why everybody else can't do that. I can't do that. I have to be intentional about connecting with somebody and thinking through that stuff. And so for the first couple of years, I would sit in his office. I'd listen to him talk on the phone. I'd watch what he did. I was scared of picking up the phone myself. He was giving me spooners. And so when somebody would call and say, hey, we want you to take a look at listing our property or whatever, he's like, sure, I'm going to send my son out there. We work together. We have 25 years of experience between the two of us. He had 25 years. I had 1 week.
I love that.
And he's like, you're getting both of us, but I'm going to send my son out there. And he'd kind of throw me to the wolves and we'd do things together. And so it took me a while to get my sea legs, to gain some confidence, to feel like, and why would anybody want to work with me if they could work with my dad? Like, he's definitely the varsity team and I'm the freshman team. Why? Mm-hmm. So it took me a while to get over that. That was some thinking that held me back. But I was coming out of the Marine Corps, which is incredible. We got a standard operating procedure for everything. There is a way you do everything, and it's intentional on purpose, and it's thought through on how it'll transform in the battlefield. For instance, we tie our shoelaces left over right. It's not optional. It's the correct way. And the reason it's the correct way is if you got to grab somebody's boots, or if you got to take somebody's boots off while bullets are flying or whatever, it's all done the same. So there's no mental energy spent on doing it. You just know what to do, and we train and we train and we train. And so I went from that into this where my dad just naturally was connecting with people and talking on the phone, and he really didn't operate with a schedule. And I was like, what is this? It was chaotic to me. It worked for him. So, first couple of years of my career was in the upturn leading into the great financial crisis. So things were booming, even though I'm in this small town in Kentucky, like this highway brokerage. You could just stand in the highway and get run over by a deal and earn a fee. You just had to be breathing, And then when 2008 hit, we had just franchised with SVN.
Oh, wow.
And I went to their kind of boot camp out in California.
Was that a hard decision?
My dad didn't want to do it, and I did. I wanted exposure to how people outside of small towns operated. I wanted to learn from people who are better than me. Mm-hmm. And so I was all for it. I liked their culture and I was a big fan. And so my dad kind of did it for me. And so we franchised. It was a good thing for me, for sure. And my dad would look at it and be like, he didn't need it, and he was giving up royalties, but it was a great thing for me. And so I met a guy named Rod Santamassimo who was just leaving SVN at the time.
Was
Connected
Rod
with him.
actually a broker? Like, was he in the broker
Early
side?
on, he was a broker.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
His dad was in kind of in that space. And so he grew up reading leases and that kind of stuff. So yeah, he was a broker for a while. He was a corporate exec for SVN. On his way out, as we were coming in, met him. He started the Massimo Group, and I hired him pretty quick, 2008, 2009 timeframe. I forget when it was exactly. And now all of a sudden, I had a version of the Marine Corps back in my life. I had, and I'm getting around to answer your question, but I had systems and structures that I was craving. And I'm not great at necessarily figuring that stuff out from a blank slate. Like, I'm not good with a clear canvas. I need some structure, and then my brain starts firing. When I see something, I'm like, ooh, that can be improved. But if you just give me a blank slate, I'm really going to muddle around and struggle. I need some work done first to help me. And so Rod came in with his New York kick you in the rear end kind of accountability, and gave me some structure and accountability and just the whole coaching aspect. That really helped me. And here's what I would suggest to your listeners, and what's so important about the brokerage business is social media, great. Blogging, podcasting, getting your name out there, becoming well known, all that stuff's important. But none of it matters if you're not doing the very, very boring, basic, not very much fun blocking and tackling of the brokerage business, which is getting on the dang phone and calling owners or tenants or whatever your specialty is. I mean, you end up, there's a lot of nuance to a lot of this stuff, but man, when it boils down to it, you got to learn phone skills and you got to make the calls. And the best brokers in every market, the ones that have long, sustainable careers, are the ones that can generate their own deals. My daughter's a basketball player, and there is one of her teammates. She's a junior. This teammate of hers is a senior. This girl can create her own shot. My daughter is a 5'5" point guard that's quick, but not really super fast. She's not necessarily, she's a good athlete, and she puts a ton of work in. She's focus driven. There's so much thing, but naturally gifted wise, she's not very tall. She can't jump very high. Like, she's a great shooter, but like, she can't. Part of her game isn't creating her own shot. A lot of brokers have a basketball game like my daughter. They need the market to create the opportunities for her. Right. You give my daughter an open shot, she's knocking it down. Like, she's shooting 54% from three this year. I love it.
Wow.
But they're open shots, and her teammates are creating it for her.
Yeah.
Almost always. The other girl is going to play in college, and she's going to be the all-time leading scorer in our team in another couple games for the high school, all-time leading scorer for the high school, because she can create her own shot. Wow. And she's aggressive, and she's not afraid to drive to the hoop and get hammered and stuff like that. Man, brokerage is like that. You look at the Bob Knackles in New York City and the Reed Bennett's in Chicago and the guys like that who have long, sustainable careers, they can create their own shot. And you do that by prospecting. And it's not a secret. It's just not fun and sexy and glamorous and creating an Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever, all that other LinkedIn stuff. That's more fun. It's more glamorous. I want to post all day so that people call me, and then I get to choose my opportunities. That only works when the market's rolling. But we've just seen what it looks like when we have a downturn. Right. And if, I'm old enough to see the previous downturn with the great financial crisis. Like, I got a taste of that in my first couple of years, thankfully. So I saw what a downturn looks like. And I learned to prospect in the downturn while I was getting coached by Rod himself. Back then was the coach, wow. And the only coach back then. And so I learned how to prospect in a downturn, and that's what has sustained my career. Like I have the ability to create my own shot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a numbers game. You get told no a lot. It's not necessarily that fun, but that's the secret to a long, sustainable career in commercial real estate is learning how to prospect. And there's no secrets.
Yeah.
There's no magic scripts. There's no don't try to do it the way I do it, because you need to sound like you when you do it. Because when you try to sound like somebody else or use somebody else's script or anything like that, your prospects can tell.
Yeah.
They can smell the BS on it,
Right.
And so that's what I'd say. It's just learning how to prospect and do the dirty work.
Yeah.
I love UK basketball. My son went there. My parents went there. I was bred to be a UK fan. There's this guy on the team this year, Diabate or something like that. I just said his name wrong. Number 23. This dude does the dirty work. He's a little bit undersized for a big, but man, he is strong. He's banging. He's getting rebounds.
Yeah.
No plays are run for him.
Right.
If he scores, it's because he got a rebound and he put it back. Like he's out there doing the dirty
He's
work.
Scrappy.
That's what brokerage is like.
Yeah.
You want it to be fun and glorious and nice cars and all that stuff, man, you got to do the dirty work. Or every downturn, you're going to go sell insurance.
Yeah.
And then maybe you'll come back later because you were relying on your presence for opportunities instead of going out there and prospecting. And that's what we see during the downturn.
Yeah.
It culls the herd.
Yeah,
Because the guys who can't go create their shot, they go do something else.
That's funny. That is true.
I wasn't trying to be funny, but that's
No, I know, but it would
Man,
just
that's what it looks like.
reminded me of like,
No, literally, I just got a picture of like 6 different faces.
yeah, it just reminded
Right?
me of a lot of people. Yeah.
It's funny. Those guys get quiet in the downturn. You're like, are they?
I haven't
still
heard.
doing
Yeah, I
that?
haven't
Or-
heard of so and so in a while. I
haven't
wonder if
seen
they
them
hung
put a
up their
deal
license
in a while,
but-
and then it's funny. But no, so let's translate that. Okay, so HearthStone Capital, you guys are a fund placing capital in real estate investments, and I'll let you speak to that. Maybe give us a little synopsis of HearthStone Capital, but then anchor that and say, like, okay, how do you translate that skill now of doing the dirty work, but now you're in an investment company and you're leading an investment company?
Yeah, so HearthStone Capital is a fund of funds, right? So we raise money and we invest in other people's deals. So we made a decision to not be the operators. So we're trying to give people an opportunity to invest in commercial real estate, make a great return, and impact eternity at the same time. So we're investing with people. We were talking about Joe Huber earlier. Man, they take a portion of their profits and they fund 2 specific ministries that they're passionate about. Like we invest with them because they're great operators with great deals, people that we're aligned with missionally. And by doing so, we can invest alongside of him and impact people at an eternal level for Jesus, not just in provide a great return for our investors. So that's what we're trying to do. So we're about to launch our anchor fund where we're going to try to, raise $100 million in 5 years and invest in deals with the Joe Hubers of the world where we can impact people for Jesus in some way, not necessarily at the property level, but it might be. Man, we want to change people's lives through investing, and we want to give people an opportunity, high net worth individuals, family offices, people that want to invest and care about those same things. So if that's what our model is, what I do now is I prospect for great operators. Like I'm still prospecting. It's the same thing, except I'm looking for the Joe Hubers of the world. And if we're able to raise $100 million in 5 years, like I got to have a place to put that.
To put it, yeah.
That has to go back out the door.
Right.
And I need to be building relationships with people now
Right.
that I can trust enough to invest with.
You know
And
what I
know that
like
they're gonna
about
do-
that, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What I
No, that was
like
it.
about that is you are with the commercial real estate brokerage. It's not I call today and I get the deal tomorrow. It's I call today and I put the seed in the ground, and then I call next month or in 3 months over the span of 2 years, because these are large transactions, right? And so you're investing for 2 to 3 years down the road for your business from the consistency that you do today. You know that you're going to deploy $100 million as you raise for this fund. And you don't just find good operators with one phone call. That's a rapport. It's like, hey, how are your deals doing? Well, I've been watching and calling and monitoring, your deals over the course of a year and a half. And then to feel confident to come into that. So I like the long game that translates from that for sure. Interesting, as you're prospecting for good operators, what are the questions that you're asking these guys now, given kind of the climate and where we're at in the commercial real estate cycle?
Well, on the faith side, we want to understand missionally if we're aligned. All right, so we're trying to figure that out. We're trying to figure out if they pass the beard test, which is weird to say back to back, but like, would I want to hang out and have a beer with this guy?
Beer or beard?
Beer.
Beer, okay.
Like have a beer. Would I want to have a beer with this guy?
Right.
Like, do we like them?
Yeah.
Do we enjoy them? We're in a deal right now that's going a little sideways and struggling environment, something we weren't able to anticipate. Market kind of shifted. And it turns out when things are good, we enjoy these operators. And when it goes sideways, a little bit more difficult, which is always the case, but and we're now seeing what kind of level of detail that we like to see from them. Like, for instance, I've done a number of syndications myself where I'm the operator and I'm, local deals around here. I'm not particularly detailed. Like I'm kind of an opportunity idea guy and I need people around me to give the level of, like some people want to see the number, they want to see the numbers in the reporting. They've got very detailed questions. Like I need somebody on my team that has those answers, right? I'm not the best guy for that. So we want to know from our operators, like, do they have the level of detail? Do they operate with a scalpel or a broadsword? And we want to see scalpels from our operators. I think I stole that analogy from Joe Huber, by the way. He said that, and I was like, "Ooh,
That's good.
Perfectly.
That's good.
Describes what." And so, what kind of track record do they use? How much debt do they use? If we've got an operator who starts ticking up over 65% leverage, like we start getting real skittish, real fast. We don't want to see maximum leverage. Back to what we were talking about before, it just introduces more risk. We don't deal in debt, but the people we invest with do. And so we need to be cognizant of the risk of the deal, even though it doesn't land on us as the investors. And so as we're developing relationships with potential investment partners and operators, we're just trying to feel that stuff out, like first thing is, am I going to spend an eternity with this guy or not?
Yeah.
Or this woman or not.
Right.
That needs to be there. If it's not, we're not missionally aligned, and that just is what it is, kind of thing.
Yeah.
In other words, it's just, man, do they have a track record? Are they great operators? Have they produced before? How do they report? How often do they expect to hear us? We'll generally bring enough to the deal where we'll negotiate a portion of the GP, which means we have a little bit more influence, but still not control,
Right.
which is a little bit of can be a sticky place. So we just want to make sure the relationship is solid, that we're missionally aligned, that we understand the risk going into the deal, and that we're comfortable enough with the operator that we're willing to put our investors' dollars along with our own in their hands,
Has some of the deals that you have facilitated as a broker shaped the criteria that you now have as the investor coming into the deal?
Maybe just the exposure to how people have made mistakes have certainly shaped. Like I saw a deal where a government policy change killed the deal, just dried up the demand source of that deal. Nobody saw it coming. And, there was a decade of demand in the past. And all of a sudden, government changes policy and that demand drives up, just dries up. Nobody saw that coming. So we're very leery now
Yeah.
of anything that's dependent upon government policy for demand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's something we've learned. My partner in Hearthstone has come out of senior housing development, so there's a lot of lessons learned from what worked there and what
Oh, yeah.
like we don't invest in ground up development. We could in the future. We're getting a little bit more comfortable with the idea of it, but it really doesn't fit the fund of the model, which we want to be a cash flowing fund.
Yeah.
You know, we're a stock that pays dividends.
Right. Right.
And development, it's hard to do that for, you know, maybe the first 3 years or 4 years as things are coming out of the ground and getting stabilized. So the answer to your question is yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep moving here.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to jump into our smaller pocket segment. So, Bo, go ahead and tell us about a deal that has gone wrong. It could be a personal investment deal. It could be a brokerage deal. What went wrong? And then most importantly, what did you learn from it?
Well, I started an insurance company one time.
You started an insurance company?
I started an insurance company, and the idea was I would take my commercial real estate clients, property owners, you know, my best clients, and I was like, hey, what if we started a commercial insurance company? You bring your properties to our insurance company, and we'll share in the fees. You'll make some money off of these policies that you have to pay anyway. We'll have an initial. I think it was legal. We talked about it very openly, and so if it was illegal, then we were ignorant, and I was certainly ignorant to what I was stepping into. But we'll start with this base, a stabilizing base of large clients, and then we can start growing it from there. You know, and I was like, man, this is a great idea. Started running pro formas and
Vertically integrated. Yeah.
had a couple partners in this thing, and man, I was like, this is going to be better than the real estate. You know, people have to have insurance. They might as well get a kickback from it or whatever. And so these guys were going to be minority owners in the company, you know. So I think it was fine for me to share the profits of the company with them. But anyway, it was an epic fail. And thankfully, it failed fast. And so a couple things. I lost a bunch of money.
Oh, man.
And
I mean, on paper, it sounds like a good idea, though.
So what went wrong?
what went wrong is to write policies, you have to have relationships with the actual carriers. We had a partner who was bringing the carriers, and he did not deliver. And so I had my clients who were ready to be quoted, and I had no companies to quote them with.
Really?
And it was bad. And one of the big lessons learned was I partnered with a guy, and I didn't vet him enough. I just trusted too much. I was in my early 30s. Man. You know, I'd never been burnt before. I was used to dealing. I grew up with a dad who was an honorable guy, had integrity, and that's how we ran our company. I thought that was normal.
Right.
And then we had a guy who either just couldn't deliver what he thought, or potentially was just not a good guy.
Misrepresenting what he could do from the beginning.
It was embarrassing, man. It was so embarrassing.
What were those conversations with your clients like?
Well, it was embarrassing is what it was like. You know? It was like calling them up and saying, look, I thought we could deliver on this, and we can't, you know.
Yeah.
And this thing, and I'm not going to spend the next 2 years doing this. So like, I thought it was a good idea. Every dollar you've put into this, you're going to get back. Just give me some time. And what happened, a couple things happened. When I went home, I told my wife, I was like, and at the time this was a huge amount of money, but I was like, I've just lost $250,000 that I'm going to have to pay back. That was my portion of it. Is me and the third guy we bounced, and then me and my other partner, we basically split what was owed, and we dissolved the company. And so he paid back his people, and I paid back my people, and and I had my best commercial real estate brokerage year that year. and I was able to pay everybody back in a year,
Wow.
which felt great to get
Right.
that off my back.
Right.
But I told my wife, I was like, at the time of the failure, I was like, this is a failure. We're shutting it down. I owe a ton of money, and I'm sorry, and I feel like an epic failure here.
Oh yeah.
And
Right.
and I remember she just looked at me and she's like, "Ah, you got this." You
Wow.
know,
What a lady.
it
What a
was
gal.
like blowing wind in my sails.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and I looked at her. I was dumbfounded that that was her reaction.
Yeah.
And it bred a lot of confidence and awesome how
Wow.
the Lord can work through our wives, um, and just and all other things being equal, marry a good woman.
Yeah.
You know, I want to come on that real quick because I know that all of us on this podcast and a lot of the people listening to our show value a godly spouse and value marriage and the institution of it. If you listen closely to a lot of guys who are faith-based and have been successful, almost without exception, they all will give credit to their wife. And that's not on accident. That's not a coincidence. Oftentimes our spouses are the unseen portion of this, but man, here's what's crazy. If somebody called you and said, Bo, I would like an hour of your time, all right, you're selective about who you would say yes to because your time is constrained and you're clear about where you want to spend that. But your spouse is spending so much time with you. So there's so much influence that's happening, but the expression of that influence in you comes through the way you run your business, the way you interact with your employees, your investors. And I think there's a lot of all the ladies out there that are working in the backgrounds, just standing strong with their men is awesome.
And the spiritual reality is the two become one.
Yeah.
And so how am I going to do something apart from her?
Yeah.
Like in a real spiritual sense.
Right.
I mean, if that's true, then and you're operating together even when you're physically apart.
Right.
And she's part of all that. And I've learned over the years to listen to her gut. Her women's intuition is an actual thing. And when I go against it, it defies logic. But I just pay attention to it now.
That's awesome.
Learn that the hard way.
So just to summarize for you and just kind of take all of this, it's, be careful who you go in business with.
Yes.
Probably vet further than what you think. It's that trust but verify. And sometimes we feel uncomfortable vetting somebody that we're familiar with because we feel like we are questioning their integrity or we should be past that. Mm-hmm. But like, here's what it's not just about an integrity issue. It's a skill. Are we a good fit for each other partner-wise? There's so many people that you're best friends with that you never go in business. And so understanding those variables. And then number 2 is if you're going to fail quickly.
Yes. Oh man, there's definitely situations where, man, tough it out, bite the bullet, make it work, get there. This was not one of those. If it's going to fail, man, do it fast, and move on from it,
Yeah. And maintain your integrity, right? And that's what you did with your investors to make them whole. Was there any kind of long-term reinforcement of those relationships after those guys saw your commitment to make them right?
Maybe so. I think the avoidance of the opposite of that was the real key. They believed, they invested. So they believed I was honorable, or they at least had enough trust in me that if things went wrong, that I would make them whole or operate in their best interest. And so I did that. So I think I validated their trust in me.
Yeah.
Which maybe strengthen, but at least maintain the relationship. And man, our name is more valuable than gold and silver. Scripture tells us.
Yes.
And it's very true. And so, dude, I'd give up the dollars in a second to protect the name.
Yeah.
It takes a lifetime to build a reputation and 2 minutes to burn it down. So, All right, we're going to go into what we call our little nugget. Bo, it's part of our show where you give us something fundamental to the way that you operate yourself, a core value for how you have your outlook on your business, your family, that somebody can apply to their lives.
I, can I give something that's been an aha moment to me this
Yes.
week? This is fresh, and I almost want to get it out of my head into words just to clarify my own thinking. But I think this will land for you guys. I was having a call with my own coach, and I'm in this program called Strategic Coach out of Chicago, where I go up there once a quarter. It's entrepreneurial coaching, and it's a great program. My dad was in it before, and kind of grew up with some of those thinking tools and stuff. But I had this call once a quarter with the program advisor for Strategic Coach. She checks in and sees how things are going and points me to specific tools, and they're valuable calls. And I was telling her, I was like, hey, I've got this new hobby. It's really the first hobby that I've ever had, and I've fallen in love with it. I'm having a blast. Never created with my hands before. I've always been like a talking and thinking kind of guy, but I've started leather working, and I mean, I'm making wallets and stuff, and I'm loving it. I can't get enough. And I'm telling her, I'm like, man, I could see this being a business. Maybe I could do it with my kids. And her response really surprised me. She goes, Bo, what is it with you entrepreneurs? Have to turn everything into a business. Can't you just enjoy it? No. And I was like, what? You know, if it's good, why wouldn't I make it into a business? So then I was talking to my coach that I meet with once a month, and he says, he goes, Bo, you know, habits, the way we spend our time, are a derivative of our identity. And I was like, okay, that sounds smart. What do you mean? You know, like
Right.
what does that mean? He said, well, you identify as an entrepreneur. That's part of what you believe is your identity. Therefore, anything good, you're going to turn into a business or try. Like that's the way you think. That's what you think is good. And the reality is, my identity is not an entrepreneur. My identity is a forgiven saint and a child of God. Like that's my identity.
Right.
What I do for a living can be whatever. It doesn't change my identity. And so this whole little series of conversations, like the leather work and Allie saying, what is it with you entrepreneurs? You know, and then my coach tying that back to my identity is I've realized this week that, you know, I teach a Sunday school class, and I've been teaching on identity and how important it is. And I still don't get it right all the time. Mm-hmm. And if you examine your habits, you can tell what you really think your identity is. And that's kind of been the big aha moment for me this week is, man, hey, just enjoy something as a hobby, you know?
Right.
And every, like how we think, how we behave, our habits, how we operate in business, all that flows from our identity. And so, man, you want to see who somebody thinks who they are, you watch what they do.
Yeah.
You know? And that's kind of been the big aha for me.
You know, when you
this week
find
is-
out, you know, when you find out what your identity's in is when something's taken away. That's the rubber meets the road moment. Because when you have it, you just don't see it with that kind of clarity. When you take it away, and that's why when guys retire, they kind of have this crisis of like, who am I? What do I do?
Or when
My
the kids go to
purpose is-
college and you're staring at your spouse for the first time alone in the house in 20 years, and you're like, do I even like this person or not? You know, it's
Right,
like
right.
you take that, you're right. You take stuff away, you figure out who you really are a lot of times. And
That's good.
No, that's great.
you don't have to do that though.
Right,
You could
right.
just examine your habits and your behaviors and spend some time in prayer and, you know, do it the easy way.
Yeah.
What did Confucius say? All right. Hey, what's been one of the best resources in your business development?
Audible, for sure. I probably listen to 2 books a week. And I used to think, all right, if I'm going to read a book, I need to protect my environment and I need to take notes and use the page and write. I've gotten away from that over the last 5 or 6 years. And I just want to marinate my brain
Yes.
in other people's best thinking. And what sticks, and what I miss, fine, who cares? I don't even realize I missed it. Like I don't
You're
know
okay
the
with
difference.
the 10%. You're
I wanna
okay with
eat the
just
meat.
getting that. Yeah.
I want to eat the meat and throw away the bones and just marinate my brain in good thinking. And as I've gotten older, I've started listening to more fiction, and it's almost like a rest for my brain, which is very valuable. So that and podcasts, I mean, you can literally learn anything you want these days. Like I needed a workbench in my garage for my new leatherworking hobby, you know. And I didn't want to buy a workbench. And so I found a YouTube video of how to build one. I wanted a 4x8 so I could roll out a whole hide of leather, you know. And so there was a YouTube video on it, and I've never built anything before, but I just did what it said. And now I've got this workbench that I think is great looking. I mean, it's not professional or anything, but like the thing works.
Yeah.
You can learn anything you want these days.
Yeah.
So podcasts, Audible, like from a real functional, man, just continue the habit and the experience of continual learning.
Yeah.
And
good.
you'll continue to grow, and then you'll be a more effective to your clients, to your spouse, to your kids, all that stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
HearthStone Capital, you guys are going to be starting a big raise for the Anchor Fund. Is that right?
That's correct.
Awesome. What would it look like for people to follow HearthStone Capital and just keep this on the radar and maybe connect with you guys? Where's the best place to go?
Yeah, so if you go to HearthStoneCRE.com, is that right? This is almost live. Let me make sure that's the right. HearthStoneCRE.com. If you go there today, as I'm speaking, you've got the old version of our website. The new one will be launching in about a week or two.
Wow.
That's the best way to connect with us. You can get a great feel of what we're about. And if you want to connect, the website's the best way. I'm on LinkedIn, so you can certainly reach out there. My email is bo@hearthstonecre.com. That's hearth, like a fireplace, hearth, HEARTH, stone, CRE.com.
We'll put those links in the show notes, man. Hey, thank you so much for taking time today and getting into the nitty gritty of just, getting on the business end of real estate and doing it for the long haul and not sacrificing purpose for being able to find success. So appreciate your time.
Oh, man. Thanks for having me on. This is a great conversation. I really enjoyed it.
As always, excited that you joined us for another episode of the Reinvest Podcast. If you want to learn how you can use your hard-earned capital to diversify into real estate, go to our website, reinvestcapital.us, and shoot us a message. Move farther, reach higher, and grow deeper.